Welcome to my presentation on graphic novels for adults. Let's start with some statistics that demonstrate the importance of this genre in the market and in the library. This chart shows the growth of graphic novels from roughly $400 million in 2011 to almost $600 million in 2016. And between 2013 and 2016, unit sales of graphic novels rose from 7.6 million to almost 12 million units and grew from 5 to 8.5% of total adult fiction sales. During this time, total adult fiction sales dropped almost 7%. What is a graphic novel? It's a single story or set of stories, which can be fiction or nonfiction, bound in book form, using sequential art panels, and which integrates images and text so that together they provide a narrative that is richer than either element can provide alone. The graphic novel has also been described as cinematic because, in both media, passages can be purely visual. The synergy of text and art are comparable to that of music and choreography in dance, or the way a song in a musical can advance character or plot in ways different from how they would be developed using dialogue alone. In other words, graphic novels are a true art form and deserve to be collected and promoted as a significant development in literature. What is a graphic novel for adults is harder to determine, as some books written for adults might be suitable for teenagers and vice versa. Furthermore, trade publications often lump all graphic novels for all age groups together in sales figures and in news or reviews. In the beginning, there were comic books. Then in 1954, a psychiatrist claimed that comics led to juvenile delinquency. His book and testimony in televised Senate committee hearings on the comics industry resulted in moral panic and demands for censorship, leading to the creation of a comics industry self-censoring body and an enduring stigma of infamy around comics. In reaction, underground artists created alternative comics that dealt with sex, drugs, and other taboo subjects, most famously Robert Crumb in Zap Comics. These were marketed outside of the mainstream and sold in places such as head shops. Because they were marginalized, comics, and later graphic novels, were a perfect medium for exploring outsider themes and for confessional autobiography. The first full-length graphic novel appeared in 1978. The first to receive widespread acclaim was Maus, in which Art Spiegelman tells the story of his father's imprisonment in Nazi concentration camps. It was eventually awarded a Pulitzer Prize, and in 2016 the Washington Post was still calling it the greatest graphic novel ever written. Fiction subjects can be anything from left to right, alternate superhero history, the difficult passage from high school to adulthood, a horror story in which a plague that causes strange mutations in teenagers is a metaphor for teen alienation, and a Raymond Chandler-esque noir thriller. Watchmen and Ghost World were both made into live-action movies. Personal memoirs include, left to right, Marjane Satrapi's account of growing up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution, Craig Thompson's story of first love and rejecting his fundamentalist Christian upbringing, which Neil Gaiman called moving, tender, beautifully drawn, painfully honest. Fun Home, whose author Alison Bechdel describes as an intricate, non-linear account of my closeted gay father's suicide and my own coming out as a lesbian, and Roz Chast's record of her parents' aging, dementia, and death. An animated film was made of Persepolis. And 5 years ago, Fun Home was turned into a musical which ran off-Broadway, followed by a successful run on Broadway, where it got rave reviews and won 5 Tony Awards. It is considered the first show on Broadway to have a lesbian protagonist. Writer Kathy Acker said of the protagonists of Jaime Hernandez's Locas, "They are lesbian, Spanish-American, and punk. In a sexist, racist nation, only political and social underdogs can be the real heroes and heroines." So if you, as a librarian, feel that it is your duty to represent the underdogs, the misunderstood, and the oppressed, graphic novels can be an important part of your collection. So how do you decide what graphic novels to acquire? You could start with core collection book lists, such as those published in the past year by Library Journal, NPR, and BuzzFeed, although older lists, such as one from Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, can be useful too. Also, book distributors can offer useful lists. You can consult books such as Paul Gravet's indispensable Graphic Novels, Everything You Need to Know, and Graphic Novels Now, Building, Managing, and Marketing a Dynamic Collection by Francisca Goldsmith. As it happens, the ALA is offering an e-course by Goldsmith called Graphic Novels for Adults, Reader's Advisory and Collection Development, which starts April 9th. It's a good idea to follow graphic novel publishers online. Their websites often have blogs and upcoming releases sections. Last year, Fantagraphics published My Favorite Thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. It topped many critics' polls and was the only graphic novel on the New York Times Critics' Top Books of 2017. NPR called it a page-turning story whose pages are so brilliantly drawn you don't want to turn them, and Forbes called it one of the most profound, ambitious, and accomplished creative works to appear in any medium this decade. The story combines memoir, horror, detective fiction, and historical drama in the form of a fictional diary of a 10-year-old girl who sees and draws herself as a werewolf. The book draws visual inspiration from sources as diverse as monster magazines and the paintings in the Art Institute of Chicago. Another significant publisher is Drawn and Quarterly, which publishes, among other writers, Lynda Barry. Her book, What It Is at once a memoir, an investigation into the creative process, and a writing course. Other publishers to follow include Dark Horse, which recently published a 10th anniversary edition of Incognegro by Matt Johnson and Warren Pleece, and Top Shelf, which brought us Senator John Lewis's March, a 3-volume account of his struggles for human rights. There are 3 prominent awards for graphic novels and comic art. The Eisner Awards, named for comic legend and graphic novel pioneer Will Eisner. The Harvey Awards, named for Harvey Kurtzman, one of the founders of and first editor of Mad Magazine. And the Ignatz Awards, named for the Mouse and George Herriman's Crazy Cat cartoons, which honors small press publishers. That's Ignatz hurling a brick at Crazy Cat. Lists of previous winners are available online. The main comics convention is Comic-Con International, held annually in San Diego. The Eisners are given out here. And there are smaller Comic-Cons held in other cities. This year's Boston convention will be held August 10th through 12th. Many library and publishing journals review graphic novels on a regular basis, including Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, Kirkus, and Booklist, which has an annual spotlight on graphic novels. Comics-centered sites to follow include Comics Journal and Graphic Novel Reporter. And you can check the social review site Goodreads to see how readers are ranking graphic novels. There are many best of and essential reading lists posted there, as well as the Goodreads Choice Awards. Publishers Weekly also publishes bestsellers lists, which are available to subscribers only. In Roz Chast's latest graphic novel, Going Into Town, A Love Letter to New York, she writes of Manhattan. It's still the only place I've ever been where I feel, in some strange way, that I fit in. Or maybe that it's the place where I least feel that I don't fit in. For many people, the library might be such a place, and maybe especially so for readers of graphic novels. People who come to your library for graphic novels will increase circulation generally because they like to read, according to a 2012 article in American Libraries magazine. And an article from Public Libraries Online from 2013 claims that graphic novels and comic books are the lifeline of libraries in the 21st century. So it's in your best interest to collect and market graphic novels in your library. And I hope you do.